I'm Regina McCann-Hess, president of Forge Wealth Management, and welcome to our Women in Wealth series. Today, I'm honored to have a new friend with me. And Ellen, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and what you love about what you do?
So I'm Ellen Fisher. I'm the executive director of the Young Entrepreneurs Academy. This is sort of my give back career. So I had started back in the 80s, the Women's Yellow Pages, and was on a nonprofit board, and then was asked if I would consider running the Young Entrepreneurs Academy, and I just sort of totally jumped right in.
That's amazing. And tell us a little bit about the Entrepreneurs Academy.
Well, it is part of a national program that was formed at the University of Rochester, and we take middle school and high school students from all over the Delaware Valley. They apply for the program for a year-long after-school program. It is, they come up with an idea. Some of them actually come to the class with an idea, and then they develop it, put together a business plan. We bring in mentors to work with the students to help develop their pitch. Then they pitch their idea to a panel of investors that actually donate money to help them get started, and then they launch it.
Wow, that is so cool.
It's really fun.
Wow, so you're doing such great things.
It's I have a great job that I've created for myself. And especially this year, it's just fun being back. We're in person, engaging children, things that they think they can control, which just gets them very excited. Of course, all of us know we can't always control our businesses, but it's a good illusion.
Yeah.
And everybody just seems particularly engaged this year.
Yeah, I can imagine the idea of, coming out of the pandemic, even though we're still in, but being able to go to an event that's live in person will excite a lot of people, especially the younger generation, because they've been so isolated during the pandemic. The fact that they can be amongst their peers and working towards some goal that's really important, and getting this mentoring at the same time. My goodness, there's so many wins in that.
And it's fun because, you think when you ask, somebody to mentor a student for 6 weeks or, around 10 hours or so, you think that you're asking a lot of them, but by the ones that do it, they want to come back every year because they love working with each other and meeting the other mentors. And then they, soaking in the energy of the children is just, fabulous.
Wow. And so how do the children find out about this group, and how do they go about finding you and becoming part of it?
So it's a challenge. We do that through social media too. A lot of it now, because we're in our 8th year, so it's word of mouth. So I've had younger siblings enroll, and their friends, they'll refer other people to it. But we go to the schools, we go to all the school districts around the area and ask them to nominate a couple students for it, and then they go through the selection process. But we're always looking for parents that think their kids might be interested in this. And it's fascinating to see. After a year or two, I realized that most of the children in the class have one parent that's an entrepreneur. And I always say that that's because they eat it for dinner. They don't even realize that they're eating it for dinner, but they just hear their parents talk about a client, a customer challenge, whatever it is, they are soaking it in. And it's not all of the children, but a lot of them do have an entrepreneurial parent. So it's, and there's interest in them. The parents are interested that their kids really understand the process of that. So it's been fun. We're always looking for more engaged children to apply though.
That is just so uplifting. Oh my gosh. So, so cool.
I know. I have to tell you that coming back this year, um, every single Wednesday night I go home, it's, there's things that always frustrate everybody. It's not like it doesn't, but in general, every single Wednesday night, I feel so gifted to be able to inspire and be inspired by these young adults. They just think differently. They've taught me so many different things besides all the technology pieces, but they just think differently. And one of the things I always talk about is our first year, we took a sixth grader, and she had this really interesting business of, um, she wanted to do on Twitter at like a talent show, and that children would vote for them. And, we were like, we don't see it, we don't see this or that, or, like we would talk about how she might readjust it. And she would just tap on her keyboard and say, well, okay, then what about this? She would immediately pivot to something else and not take that personally.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, this is so many years later. She's at the University of Chicago and she keeps in touch, and all of that's great. But I think about the lesson that taught me of not internalizing people's comments about your business or how you're going about, and look at that as a constructive way to work around that. There are things that need to be worked around sometimes. And I thought that was really a great life lesson that I learned, is that not to take that stuff personally.
For sure. For sure.
Children are used to people saying no to them all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And she had some pretty thick skin too. Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah.
And it also shows, how you think you're doing something nice for that next generation, but they're also giving back to you at the same token, and you're walking away fulfilled. Maybe in some cases a little bit more than them, depending on, the situation. That's amazing.
Yeah. I think, especially when you're in the space that you are talking about, sort of what the next play will be for some of us that decide that they want to do something else after they finish their regular career.
Mhm.
To see what fills your soul
Yeah.
is really important. I think that's very big for me.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, if someone is hearing this and saying, "Oh my gosh, I want to learn more about this program. I want to learn more about what Ellen's doing." How do they find you? How do they find the program?
So we have a website. It's YEA Philadelphia.org.
Okay.
And you could just send me an email through there and I'll get it and say I'm interested in learning more, maybe coming to something, maybe donating or sponsoring it, or mentoring, or depending on what your subject matter is, maybe being a guest speaker. There's all kinds of ways people get involved.
Yeah, and that's great. You pointed that out. There's not just one reason to get involved. Like, all right, I'd love to mentor. I just don't have time right now. What else can I do? You mentioned several other ways people can help, and that is a great way to get somebody started on helping with such an important initiative.
I think I think one thing that's really interesting in this year, I just mentioned this today to somebody, that our guest speakers, we've had attorneys, accountants, insurance people, everybody that's come in the class has come back and offered something free to our students. And in all the years that we've been doing this, I mean, some people always offer things very generously.
Right.
But this year, it's been overwhelming, the amount of time that they're willing to give. And I think some of it's just what we've been, experiencing recently, that make people love the idea of actually connecting with somebody who wants to make something happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. This is such a great cause. It just really, it picks on so many different things that I'm thinking about, like, just as a young girl growing up, and, there was nothing like that that I knew about anyway for someone like myself coming up. And the fact that it's available for the kids now is so, so cool. And how you can get so many people involved in it too, in so many different ways. Good for
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
we have about 70 volunteers that work with our students over the year
Wow.
that, I'm all about sort of connecting and bringing in as many people as possible to meet them and to possibly help them in their business, maybe buy their products and services, who knows? But engage them in the community. I think that is a great gift to everybody involved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. So impressive. So impressive. And thank you for all that you're doing for that cause. It's amazing.
It's fun. It really is fun. And it's like we've had a couple of instructors that have been there all 8 years, a couple mentors that have been there almost all of the years, or graphic artists that we bring in graphic artists that help them develop a logo or a brand.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's fun that they want to do it again. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. For sure.
It's different this year, definitely different this year. Being masked is a little, you know, it's whatever.
Yeah. But to be in person, I think everybody's willing to do that little extra step just so they can do it in person, I'm sure.
That's right. That's for sure. One thing that I wanted to bring up is that there's a lot of interest and passion around children learning about financial literacy,
Okay.
and not, in my opinion, not nearly enough. Not, I don't think anybody should graduate high school without understanding something about finance, certainly about student loans
Right.
and saving and debt and everything, and certainly entrepreneurship. I mean, geez, if everybody understood what it took to be an entrepreneur, think of what great employees they would be
Yeah.
if they chose not to go that route. I mean, I consider that to be a success if somebody in our class decides, I don't want to run a business after I did this. But boy, are they going to be great, great employees,
Right. Because
understanding the process.
they're going to understand how hard it is to be an entrepreneur, to run a company.
That's true. I have actually one of the students in our class made cutting boards. And I think this is an interesting story from the standpoint of how, when you expose somebody to an experience, it can change things for them. So this was a young man who was a football player and he needed to take an easy class. So he went in and took industrial arts and he learned how to make some furniture and cutting boards, and he did cutting boards in our business.
Okay.
And he liked it so much that he decided to go into woodworking as a career and is now making cabinets in Lancaster and is 22. He did go to school, but he's 22 and he's been promoted quite a few times already. And the reason is that he understands what it takes to run that business. That
Absolutely.
it's not just about making the cabinets, it's about everything that goes into and making customers happy and making sure that it's profitable.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's a great, like, just life lesson, essentially.
It is. But this financial literacy thing is there's passion around it. I think people need to go to their school districts and stand up at meetings and ask them what they're doing.
It would be nice. It really would be nice. I mean, especially, you get all these kids coming out of high school, and even college should offer it too. Like, not offer it, be a class they have to take. I mean, you have a lot of these kids making decisions about colleges, and they're just like, oh, I just want to go to that college. And if they understood the financial part of it behind there, yeah, college A might be an amazing college and, you get that bumper sticker or whatever it is, but college B is equivalent. You might actually get a scholarship there and the price tag is going to be a little bit less. And then how long is it going to have to take you to pay that loan off after the fact? So I agree with you. I'd love to see it. Absolutely love to see it.
I just think that we have to be more vigilant with our school districts
Yeah,
to say that this is not an elective,
right.
that
And
they
it's
need
not,
to redo their curriculum to include financial literacy from elementary school. There's all kinds of financial concepts that they can learn. And some credit unions are doing, have Bearstein Bears, have all these different books that they do, but we need to make sure that our teachers understand it themselves so that they can pass it on
to the kids. Yeah. And it's not just one school district. I mean, it's blanket.
Oh.
None of them have it. None of them.
No, in fact, one of our students this year is is very interested in financial literacy and uncomfortable with the lack of information he's received in his school district, what we consider one of the top tier school districts in the area. And he just doesn't think that he learned anything, he's learned anything about it, and actually taught himself how to trade options in the
Wow.
last year. 3 of our students were working at that.
Wow. That's
I
hard.
know.
That's hard. I mean, and I'm licensed to do that. And I still think it's hard. Anytime I have to deal with options, I'm like, okay, take a deep breath.
I know. After class, sometimes I like to talk to, because they talk about which stocks that they bought.
Mhm.
And you're like,
Yeah.
that's good. But I think it's important that we talk to our children about money too, so that they at least have heard about it. I remember for me, my grandfather was obsessed with the stock market, and he talked to a stockbroker a couple times a day until he died.
Mm.
And it was really nice that the stockbroker talked to him that often, but it was before the internet. But
Yeah.
even so, listening to that and hearing, just sort of walking by the room when those conversations were happening was really made me interested in it too.
Right. Yeah,
So
absolutely. Having the conversation, hearing that conversation around you definitely, intrigues you. On that note, I know I've seen you over the years in the main line at different functions. What are some of the, I guess, challenges as a professional woman that maybe you've come across?
geez, when I first started, well, I started in one company, then I sold insurance actually for a little bit as sort of my early 20s. And one of the bosses told me I didn't wear enough makeup to sell to other business owners. And I was a little taken aback by that. That was an early on conversation, but I still see and hear other people have very difficult conversations at work
Mm-hmm.
that I'm surprised. Somebody had just told me that they were asked in their job interview, this is last week, how they would handle being a local elected official and being a mother of a young child and work.
So how's that any different from the husband being working full time and having a young child? Why do they feel like they have the right to ask that question?
I had, and then of course I told her that a million years ago I ran for the state house, and I was in the editorial boardroom of the Inquirer, and they asked me how I could, how was I going to be a state representative and raise my child. And meanwhile, my opponent had 6 children.
Oh,
And my my campaign manager had to hold my arm down on the chair because I was like, so there's still a lot of assumptions out there. I mean, we definitely need to do better. I think when we're having this big conversation about inclusion right now, and diversity, it doesn't include everybody. I
Right.
find we're not, diversity actually came up out of the term of people with different abilities,
Mm,
of what we used to call disabled.
okay.
And you know how that works, how the experience for women, all women in the workplace, is affected by what goes on. And I mean, geez, talk about examples of how difficult it's been in the last year or two. How about if you had little children
Yeah.
and you were homeschooling them basically and trying to work?
Right.
There's a lot there. I think we need to do a lot better,
Yeah.
certainly. And some of it is just job flexibility. I think that's one of the reasons that so many people have started their own business during the pandemic, is that they realized that they wanted to be and I keep saying in control is pretty funny in the business world, because there's a lot of things we can't control and that have nothing to do with us. But still, it's part of determining your own destiny.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And most of the people who had to resign during the pandemic were women having to take care of and educate their children. So that was a big thing. But also the good side of that is a lot of the new entrepreneurs, they're women. So, we'll
I
balance.
know there's a lot of good stuff. I actually remember the first car I bought. And my dad came with me because I was bought a stick shift and I didn't know how to drive a stick shift. So we had to drive it home. And I guess it got better. Who knows whether it was cool or it got better mileage. I don't remember why it was a stick shift that I was buying. And they really wanted my father to sign it, the loan, and
Oh,
he refused. He was an entrepreneur. I was a CPA, and they kept pushing it and pushing it. I had a job, and my father said, "Nope, she's walking out of this dealership if she's not signing that loan on her own." So I was lucky that I had somebody that pushed the issue, because that really helped my credit moving forward for
absolutely.
all the other things that I had to do.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to believe now, but yeah, it wasn't all that long ago that women were treated like that. And wow, we've come a long way, baby, but we've got a long way to go.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
And on that note, Ellen, I want to thank you for being my guest today.
Oh,
Absolutely
thank you.
to have you. Thank you, and thank you for everyone listening. Again, I'm Regina McCann Hess. I'm the president of Forge Wealth Management. Our website's forgewealth.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Forge Wealth, and on LinkedIn, Regina McCann Hess. Have a great day. Thank you.